My fiancée got pregnant by my brother, so my family cut off all contact after 5 years. He's in a coma, and my mother asked me to take on the role of father for his child. Just a month before I turned 30 and was supposed to get married, I found out that my mother had been having an affair with my brother. The only reason they told me about it was because she was pregnant and wanted my ex-fiancée Karen, who is 30, and my brother Chris, who is 33, had apparently been sleeping together ever since Karen and I had been engaged. Karen and I have been together since our junior year of high school and had been together through college as well. So, getting engaged was obviously the next step since we had been together for so long. However, after we got engaged, she decided to cheat on me with my brother. The only reason that even happened was a couple of days after we got engaged. My brother told Karen that he'd had feelings for her for a long time. He said he felt like he had to tell her because she was about to get married. After that, he couldn't tell her anything more. Then she realized she'd also been falling for him. They'd even flirted behind my back at family events. But she wasn't sure about him, which is why I found out about all this 5 years ago, just a few months before my wedding. The two of them sat me down with my parents and told me that they were planning on getting together. They said that she couldn't marry me because Karen was in love with Chris and they were having a baby together. I was really upset about it, and I told Karen that I wanted her to come home with me. I told my mother I wanted to end the relationship with Chris, but she made it clear that wasn't going to happen. She said Chris and Karen were going to be together, and I just had to accept it because it was their decision. I couldn't believe my mother was supporting this. At least my father tried to look ashamed and comfort me. My mother was openly supporting this, even telling me that if I had an issue with it, I could keep it to myself because Karen was pregnant and I had no right to bother her when she was in such a delicate condition. My mother was just excited to finally have a grandchild in the family, so she couldn't care much about what I was going through. She fought with me tooth and nail to justify what was going on after the confrontation that day. Karen moved in with my family because her own parents didn't want to speak to her anymore after if we told the truth, we obviously had to cancel the wedding. My parents covered the cost, so I didn't have to worry about that. However, I was cast out from the family because I refused to speak to them. For the past 5 years, we've had absolutely zero contact. The only person who'd even bothered to try and reach out to me was my father, but I wasn't even bothered about speaking to him, so there's been radio silence. From their end, it took me a really long time to get over what happened to me. Karen and I have been together for a really long time and I had loved her truly, so it took me a lot of therapy to get over it. Even now, I wouldn't say that I am truly fully over it, but I'm dealing with it. The rest of the family had kept in touch with me though, and I did find out from them that she had a son with my brother. Just a month after she gave birth, a paternity test confirmed that it was my brother's child, not mine, so there was no need to contact me after that. They ended up getting married and have been together for the past 5 years. I had assumed that everything was going well for them, but then about a week ago, my mother called me out of the blue. It took me by surprise because she'd been the most supportive of Karen and Chris, maybe even a bit too much. I called her back after she sent me an email saying she needed to speak to me urgently. When I called, she told me some pretty bad news while crying. My brother had been in a really bad accident. It was a head-on collision, and he'd slipped into a coma. There's no way to know how long it'll take for him to recover. This happened last week, just 3 days after the doctors said things were critical. My mother called to tell me. At first, I thought she'd ask me to visit him and be there for the family. I'd have been happy to do that, even though it's a lot. I had a lot of expectations and I didn't want to turn my back on someone who was in such a bad way. But then my mother went off on another tangent and said that she wanted me to be there for Karen and my nephew. I didn't even understand what she meant. Then she told me that she now expected me to step up and be there for them in my brother's place. When I asked her to elaborate, she told me that now that Chris was she said that my brother wasn't around anymore, so I had to be there for Karen and her child in every way. She didn't just mean financially, but she actually expected me to move in with them so I could take care of them. She said that she would have taken them in herself, but she was getting older and it would be too much work to take care of all of them. That's why she was calling me to let me know, and she expected me to I made a decision on the phone call itself. I lost my temper because she hadn't spoken to me for 5 years. Now that she was finally talking to me, she expected me to do something big. I could understand that Karen and her son were alone and needed someone to be there for them. but that someone should have been from their immediate family, not me. I was someone she had betrayed and then not even bothered to apologize to. I told my mother right away that I wasn't going to do it. I said she was foolish to even expect me to say yes. Then she started arguing with me on the phone. I didn't have time to waste. I was already pretty upset. I didn't want to ruin my mood while speaking to her. So I just hung up. Then I blocked her again. I tried to go about my day as usual after that. But I couldn't stop thinking about what Chris and Karen were going through. I felt bad for them, but I wasn't going to do what my mother had asked. I wasn't going to take my brother's place in their family. He was still around. He had just slipped into a coma. It wasn't like he had passed away. She was acting like he was gone. I was feeling very unsure about this entire situation. So later that day, I decided to call my father instead because I thought he'd be more reasonable than my mother. It was awkward to speak to him after 5 years of no contact, but after some small talk I asked him how Chris was doing. He told me that things weren't looking good, and then I told him about my conversation with my mother. I thought he'd have some insight, but he said that my mother was right to expect I was really taken aback because my dad was usually the more level-headed one out of both my parents. Now even he was saying such strange things when I asked him if he really meant it. He told me that he did and said that Karen and I have had a history anyway, and that I'm also part of the family, no matter what our relationship has been like over the past 5 years. Ultimately, I am blood, and if they can count on anybody to step up, it should be me. My mother and I are the only family members left, and her expectations are not unreasonable. I was really thrown by this, and I'm still trying to figure out what to do. I've been avoiding speaking to anybody from my family for the past week, even my other relatives. I'm afraid that somebody will bring this up with me, and then I'll be forced to explain my decisions. I also kind of feel like the bad guy here because I am not stepping up for my family. I know they need me, at least emotionally. I just don't know what to do. My mother's request is strange and unreasonable, but I feel bad rejecting it outright. I haven't even been to the hospital to see my brother because I feel weird about this situation. I haven't been able to speak to any of my friends about it either. I haven't told my friends about this because it's all so personal. They know how things have been between my family and me ever since my wedding got called off. This is a little more strange than that though, and that's why I'm posting this here on Reddit. I really think I need some objective opinions about what I should do and be. It's my friends or family, and everybody is going to have some sort of biased opinion. I really need advice because I think I am going to lose my mind if I don't find an acceptable solution to all of this soon. Honestly, I feel like I'm going back to that phase of my life where I was constantly thinking about Karen and Chris right after I found out that she had been cheating on me. That was a really dark period, and I don't want to go back there since it has taken me a lot to snap out of it. Please, whatever anybody has to say, no matter how harsh. I'd appreciate it if someone could just tell me so I can at least take my mind off things. I'm sorry I've been refusing to go see my family and step up for them after my brother got into an accident. I've decided not to go see them for the time being because it's just too much for me right now. I didn't even realize how bad my anxiety had become in the last week, just because of the things my parents were telling me. But I'm back on track now. My anti-anxiety meds are helping a lot. I'm trying to cope with everything. Many people have been very supportive. I've received a lot of love and support in the comments section of my original post. I've also had people reach out to me personally in my DMs to let me know that they are there for me, and that I'm not alone. I'm very grateful for that. I've also spoken to a couple of my close friends and told them what's going on. I don't think I can handle all of this on my own. They've also told me I can talk to them whenever I need to. They've said my decision not to meet them right now is the right one for me. It's the best decision I can make for myself. I have to put myself first no matter what anyone else is going through. Chris and my family have always put themselves first, so I should do the same. To be honest, I don't think I need to be there for them emotionally either. They have each other and can deal with this on their own. I was the one who had no one from my immediate family when the wedding got canceled and I found out I'd been cheated on. My parents turned against me and picked my brother over me, even though he was the one who was in the wrong, and he should have been the one to leave the family. Anyway, that's all in the past and I'm trying to move on. I won't be able to do that successfully if I go back to them, so I've blocked them again and I'm going to stick to my decision of not having any contact with them. I'm really sorry about what happened to my brother. I really hope he recovers soon. No matter what he has done, I cannot wish bad things to happen to anybody. I hope things work out for them, but I'm out of here. I'm just going to focus on my own mental health now. I'm considering going back to therapy because of the way I dealt with this and the way my parents' words got under my skin. I really think I need to speak to a professional because I don't think I'm dealing with all of this as well as I thought I was. All those old feelings are coming back to the surface yet again. I'm just going to look out for myself now. I heard from a couple of relatives that my brother's condition is still pretty critical and is not showing any signs of improvement. It has been almost 2 weeks and he is still in the hospital. Things are really bad for my family and I feel sorry for them. But there's not much I can do. Everyone who knows my family has stopped by the hospital to see my brother at least once in the past 2 weeks to offer their condolences for the terrible accident that has taken place. Apart from me, I would have done that, but then I also found out from my relatives that my parents have been talking badly about me to anyone who has been visiting them. They've been making me out to seem like the bad guy. They're saying that I was asked to come and visit them and be there for the family, but I refused and accused them of saying that this was karma for screwing me over 5 years ago. I obviously did not say anything like that. Some of them contacted me to confirm whether this was true or not because it did not seem like something I would say, given that I'm generally a nice person. I told them I didn't say those things. My parents were making it up to make it sound like I was being a terrible person. It was probably a reaction or maybe just like that because that's the kind of people my parents are. I was just really disappointed that they were saying such things about me and making up stories just to portray me as a bad guy. Especially after already having screwed up my life once. I'm just lucky that my relatives asked me about it because if they had just chosen to believe my parents, I don't think anybody in the family would have been speaking to me at this point. For the past 5 years I had not spoken to my parents, but the rest of my family, my aunts and uncles and of course my cousins, had all been there for me. I really did not want to lose that, and it seems like my parents could not stand it, so they decided to try to screw that up for me as well. I guess they wanted to make things difficult for me as well. I just don't understand why they hate me so much. I've literally never done anything to them. My brother and I have never been particularly close. My parents have always had a soft spot for him, right from our childhood. But this seems unnecessary and excessive. Update 3. Hi. I posted an update 2 days ago. Today my mother decided to reach out to me yet again. I had blocked them everywhere, so she had no option, but she came by to talk to me. When I got home from work, she was already there waiting for me. I was tired from work, so I didn't feel like talking to her. I almost got back into the car. But then she spotted me, so I had to go and speak to her. I didn't want her in my house because it would be hard to get her out. I needed to get rid of her, so I decided to talk to her in the front yard. It didn't go well. She started yelling at me, and the neighbors noticed. The conversation started normally enough. She made some small talk and I answered politely. But then I couldn't help myself. I asked her why she'd been telling people lies about me just to make me look bad. I told her it wasn't fair because I hadn't wished any harm on my family, even after they treated me this way. I just wanted to move on with my life, but they were making it really difficult. I kept these feelings to myself for a long time, so when I saw her I just blurted it out. I couldn't help myself. I told her that after everything that had happened, it was tough for me to see them as a family because they'd never treated me that way. I was pretty disappointed by their behavior, so I told her whatever it was she wanted to talk about could wait. I just gotten home from work and wasn't in the mood to fight or talk about anything too emotionally exhausting. She'd been listening to me calmly up until that point, but when I told her I didn't want to speak to her, she got really upset and said she was just there to apologize for the same things I'd mentioned. She said she and my father had been thinking about things and realized they hadn't treated me well in the past 5 years. I was obviously upset about that even now, which is why I wasn't visiting. She came to talk to me and try to sort things out between us because she felt that, at this time, the family should stick together, just for the sake of emotional stability. After I told her that I didn't want to speak to her, she decided to yell at me instead. She said that I should just be grateful that I still had a family. She even said that I should be grateful that I still had a family because of how I reacted when I heard about my brother's accident. She was ready to cut me off and make sure that the rest of my relatives stopped speaking to me permanently. I didn't understand what she was talking about, so she explained that she thought my reaction to the accident hadn't been sad enough. I didn't even know what she had expected me to do. She said she thought I should have shown some emotion when I was told about my brother's accident. I just sounded indifferent on the phone, but obviously any news like that is going to affect me. I mentioned earlier that I don't wish it upon anybody, including my family. I was upset when I heard about his accident. Maybe that hadn't come through on the phone because she couldn't see my face. She didn't come through on the phone call because she couldn't see my face, but her reasons were just completely baseless and illogical. She even went on to say that the fact that I had not been there for Karen and my nephew and stepped up for them in my brother's place just showed how little I cared for the family. She was just making things up yet again to justify how they were acting. I really think that my parents have started to lose their marbles because these things are. It was a pretty strange and unnecessary situation. After she started yelling at me, I lost even more interest in speaking to her. I just decided to get inside my house and ask her to leave. After some time, I unlocked the door to my house and went in while she was still yelling at me. She tried to follow me inside, but I shut the door in her face and told her to leave because I was seriously upset and didn't want to interact with her anymore. She argued with me, but I stood my ground. She left, but not before she cursed me out and said I'd face consequences. I don't know what that means, and I'm not interested in finding out. I just want to relax and move on with my life. Update 4. It's been 26 days since the accident, and my family finally had some good news. I have some good news to share with everyone today. My family finally told me about it, but I didn't get the personal update. The good news is that my brother is finally showing some signs of improvement. He's not in a coma anymore and is responding better, which is a good sign. I really hope he makes it and just improves from here on out. The last month has been really stressful for everyone as a family, including me. I'm not even part of the family anymore and have been cast out long ago. But the way my parents have been acting over the past 26 days has really shown me that they're unhinged. I think they were just taking out their frustration on me after my last interaction with my mother, which I talked about in my last update. I didn't hear from her for a couple of days, but then my father called me to come see him. Instead, he used a different number than he usually uses, so I didn't realize it was him at first. When I answered, he started yelling at me right away. He was pretty clever about it too. He tried to catch me off guard so he could scream at me instead of calling at a normal time. He called me at 5 a.m. He knew I'd be sleeping and that I'd have to wake up to answer. My brain would be all foggy. A couple days after my interaction with my mother, my dad called at 5 a.m. After almost 3 calls, I finally answered the 4th. He immediately started yelling about how ungrateful I was and how he wished I'd never been born. He said he was going to make sure the rest of the family never spoke to me again because I was a terrible person for not even bothering to come to see my brother in the hospital when he was suffering so much and not being there for the family. After ranting for almost 5 minutes, he hung up. I was still trying to process everything that was going on when he hung up. He ended up blocking me on the phone. At the time it wasn't very funny, but now I find it pretty funny because my parents are desperate to make me seem like the bad guy. They yell at me for arbitrary things. They'll go to extremes just for these reasons. I've already said that I believe they were taking their frustration out on me. They just needed to escape court. As usual, I had to be there for it. My father tried to turn the rest of the family against me, but they know I'm not wrong and they also know what happened 5 years ago. Now that my brother's condition is improving, I just hope they'll stop bothering me and focus on him. Update 5. I've been living in Germany for work for the past 1.5 years. I've also started seeing someone, my girlfriend, who I've been with for 8 months. It's been great. In the past 3 years, I've had no contact with my family, which has also been fine. I've kept in touch with my relatives, but only the nice ones. My brother is doing well. He survived the accident and is now back to normal. Karen approached me after my brother started recovering to apologize for what happened in the past, but I told her that at this point, an apology wasn't necessary. She approached me after everyone found out I was moving to Germany. She came by with a bouquet to apologize on behalf of her and my brother. My brother couldn't come see me because he was too ashamed of what happened 8 years ago, but honestly it didn't matter anymore, so I told them I forgave them and I didn't care. And I meant it. I was moving on with my life and focusing on better things. Since then I've been here for a while now, and my parents don't speak to me anymore. I'm really happy about that because I would never let that happen again. I'm finally happy now anyway. Now that you guys are all caught up, I'd better get back to my life. Thanks so much to everyone who showed me so much love and concern when I was posting here. I appreciate it. Especially those who continued to ask about me in the comments, even after I had stopped posting.